Though I often looked for one, I finally had to admit that there could be no cure for Paris. Part of it was the war. The world had ended once already and could again at any moment. The war had come and changed us by happening when everyone said it couldn't. There was no way back home anymore, and that was part of Paris, too. Why we couldn't stop drinking or talking or kissing the wrong people, no matter what it ruined. Some of us had looked into the faces of the dead and tried not to remember anything in particular. Ernest was one of these. Our first apartment in Paris was at 74 Cardinal Lemoine, on the 4th floor of a building next door to a public dance hall, a bal musette. The apartment came furnished with an enormous false mahogany bed. Apparently, in Paris, everyone did everything in bed: eat, sleep, work, and make lots of love. Ernest adored everything about Paris at first sight. I was homesick and disappointed. Ernest sat down to write to his family, telling them how we were settling in, while I unpacked our wedding china and the few nice things we'd brought along, like the pretty tea set with its pattern of salmon-colored roses. Cradling the round teapot in my hands, I suddenly had such a pang of homesickness that I began to cry. It wasn't St. Louis I longed for exactly, but some larger and more vague idea of home, known, loved people and things. And it was only 5 days to Christmas.
Not crying, are you?
Only a bit.
You've got to be brave.
Every Christmas when I was a little girl, my mother strung holly boughs along the red glass windows in the parlor. And we always had a tree with strings of cranberries.
You'll settle in, you'll see.
Will we ever go home again?
Of course we will. But first we have to find a way to make it here.
Do you think we can?
Definitely. As long as we stick together. I need to feel you're on my side. Are you on my side?
You know I am. But I still want a tree.
With strings of cranberries, I know. Maybe we should go out now and shop for our Christmas stockings. That might cheer you up.
We'll remember this someday, when we're both old with gray hair and walking sticks, the accordion music, and the foul stink from that damn toilet downstairs.
Better than pissing out of the window. But I will never have a walking stick.
That evening, we went to a local cafe and got down to some serious drinking. By the time the cafe closed, we were so tight we had to hold on to each other for balance. At home, we were both sick, one after the other, into the chamber pot. The dance hall was roaring with drunks when we went to bed. The accordion had risen to fever pitch.
The accordion and the whores and the retching. That's our music.
The sound of our first year in Paris.
Ernest had believed he could write anywhere, but after a few weeks of working in the cramped apartment, he decided to rent a single room, not far away, in Rue Descartes. He was living the life of a proper writer, just as he'd always dreamed of doing. Along the boulevard Montparnasse, there was a string of cafes where expatriate artists preened and talked rot and drank themselves sick.
I said to myself this morning, you are simply an undiscovered genius. You are definitely ahead of your time.
Why is it that every other person you meet says they're an artist? A real artist doesn't need to gas on about it. He doesn't have time. He does his work and sweats it out in silence. And no one can help him at all.
While he wrote, I kept house for us, making the bed, sweeping and dusting, shopping for food in the market. I missed him when he was gone, but he didn't seem to miss me. Or if he did, he never said.
I am going to have the goujons. I had them the other day. They were simply delicious.
Goujon, huh? What a clever little cat you are. Asking for them all by yourself. In French, too.
My French is a damn sight better than yours.
Oh, see, you're almost a Parisian. You could always cut your hair, like that woman over there.
I thought you liked my hair long. Well, I guess I could cut mine, and you could grow yours, and then we'd both look the same.
We'd be the same guy. You know, I think I'm going to call you Taddy.
Why's that?
It suits you.
Well, then you're going to be Taddy, too. We will both be Taddy.
It would be the hardest lesson of my marriage, discovering the flaw in this thinking. I couldn't reach into every part of Ernest, and he didn't want me to. He needed me to make him feel safe and supported, but he also needed to disappear into his work, away from me, and come back only when it suited him. His ambitions for his writing were fierce and all-encompassing. He had writing the way other people had religion. That was something I had to learn to accept. Paris in those days was full of artists and writers, people who would later become household names.
If you're a writer, then I'm the Statue of Liberty. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light? And you, honey, you are
I wonder if they're anyone famous.
It was an exciting time, and we were just setting out on the edge of things, waiting to be invited into the inner circle. Eventually, Ernest got up the courage to send the letters of introduction necessary if he wanted to meet the important people in the literary world. And soon enough, an invitation came from Ezra Pound. He wasn't terribly well known in the States yet, unless you knew something about poetry, but in Paris, he had a great reputation as a poet and a critic who was helping to revolutionize modern art. I didn't have a clue about what was modern, but people said nice things about Pound's wife, Dorothy, and I was keen to make new friends, so I was happy to go along when Pound invited Ernest to tea.
I want to write one true sentence. If I can write one sentence simple and true every day, I'll be satisfied. What do you think, Mr. Pound?
I think you might need to watch a tendency to be pretentious. So, young Mrs. Hemingway, you're a redhead.
So are you. Is that auspicious?
No one bears a grudge like a redhead. Your husband had better watch out.
Yes, sir. I'll bear that in mind.
So what is it you're planning to write? And what makes you think you're a writer in the first place? And what the hell are you expecting to live on while you wait to get published? If you don't know the answer to all of these questions, you're wasting your time, and mine too. The trouble with you young would-be writers is you think you know it all when you don't know a damn thing. You expect the world to fall at your feet without you having to do anything to earn it.
Come on, I want to know everything.
He has some fine ideas, big ideas. He wants to start movements, shape literature, change lives.
Then he should be a good person to know. Only watch that you don't rub him up the wrong way. You've been warned about redheads.
Hey, what did you make of Dorothy?
She's quite an artist. Her paintings are extraordinary. Yeah. But she won't push her own work forward in any way. She's very much the wife of the great man.
He did tell me they both have leave to take lovers.
How forward-thinking. Perhaps that's how all artists' marriages go in Paris?
I couldn't say.
Well, it's not something you could force on someone. They'd have to agree.
Don't start feeling sorry for her. What if she likes it? What if it was all her idea?
More likely the other way around.
He's going to send some of my poems to the Dial.
Not the stories? I thought you were working on stories.
I don't have anything good enough yet, but I will soon. Pound said I should write some articles for them about American magazines. It's all starting to happen, just like we always dreamed it would. You wait and see. Your Taddy is going to be a famous writer.
Our next introduction came a few weeks later when Gertrude Stein invited us to tea. It went much the same way as our encounter with Pound and Dorothy. There were two corners here, too, one for the men, in this case, Ernest and Stein, and one for the women, that's myself and Gertrude's partner, Alice. After a few minutes, she took my hand and led me away into the wives' corner. I felt a twinge of regret that I wasn't a writer or a painter, someone special enough to be invited to converse with Gertrude, to sit with her by the fire as Ernest did, and talk of important things. Gertrude had offered to look at some of Ernest's work, and now she asked for it, glancing quickly through the poems, a few stories, and part of a novel. Ernest paced up and down and seemed to be in pain.
The poems are very good. Simple and quite clear.
And the novel?
Strong declarative sentences, that's what you do best. Stick to that. Cut, cut, cut. Strip it right down to the bone. Keep only what's really needed.
Later that night in our big bed, we laughed about it all.
What did you think about her breasts?
Oh, they were pretty impressive.
What do you reckon they weigh?
I couldn't even begin to guess.
How about them living together? Women, I mean. I'm not sure I buy it.
The cakes were good.
Not as good as yours.
What don't you buy? That they love each other? Or is it the sex?
She said women together are the most natural thing in the world. That nothing is ugly between them.
I suppose it's flattering that she was so open with you.
Perhaps I should give her an earful about our sex life next time.
Oh, you wouldn't.
You're right, I wouldn't. But I just might tell her how you like me to.
No, you are horrible.
But you love me. Come here.
Oh, I am here. Very here.
Well, so you are.
Over the coming weeks, Ernest took Gertrude's advice and started to work seriously on the novel. During this time, he'd come home whistling and famished and eager to show me what he'd done. I loved what he was writing, and I know he did too. It was April by this time, our first spring in Paris. Ernest had been supplementing our income by writing editorials for the Toronto Star. One day he received notification that they wanted him in Genoa for an international conference. They would pay him $75 a week plus expenses. It would be our first separation in our 7 months of marriage. For the first few days, I enjoyed my own company. Ernest was such a big person. He took up all the air in the room. Now, for the first time in many months, I could hear my own thoughts and do whatever I felt like doing. But then there was a subtle shift. It was as if the lack of him had moved into the apartment with me. He was gone for 3 weeks.
Oh, no need to cry. I'm home now. Did you miss me?
Too much.
Good. I like to be missed.
He didn't say whether or not he'd missed me. There was, even then, a sort of restlessness in him. Hard to explain. He was impatient for his real life as a writer to begin. Hungry for the future he dreamt of for himself and which he was sure he could and should have. But at the same time, he was still haunted by the war and its horrors, by his past, which constantly invaded the present. He wanted everything there was to have, and more than that. And I simply wanted us to be happy.